it's time to choose your lineup here, brought to you by Jameson. Join our unofficial call to try to get pro football to Dublin. Visit jamesonsports.com for more. Little choose your lineup, Barry. We got 4 flex picks, 1 at each spot here for week 1. Who do you like in these spots?
Yeah, just if you're sitting there, you have somebody you don't have a good matchup, maybe you're a little nervous here, but here's some borderline guys that I think will have good weeks in week 1, and it's Jared Goff against the Rams. He's my QB 13. Again, we talked about what an high implied team total that is. We think that's going to be a bit of a shootout. Rams last year allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to quarterbacks. How about Tajay Spears on the road at Chicago? Bears did allow the most receiving yards to running backs last season. I think both Pollard and Spears have top 40 days in them at Chicago, especially if DeAndre Hopkins isn't able to go. We already talked about how much we think Tampa Bay is going to just blow up Washington. Well, that means they're going to have to throw. I like Jaden Daniels this week, and who's he looking for? Terry McLaurin. In the games last year, we had a target share above 23%, and that's what he's going to have this week. He's averaging 16.5 fantasy points per game. Remember, the Buccaneers last year allowed the 4th most yards to wide receivers. And finally, if you need a tight end, how about Taysom Hill, Denny Carter's guy, his nomination for my ride or die. I'm not doing that, but it's worth noting that no team in the NFL allowed more rushing touchdowns than the Carolina Panthers. And last year, Taysom Hill handled 31% of the Saints' red zone rushes, 26% of their goal line rushes. Kendre Miller's hurt. Jamal Williams doesn't seem that effective. How much does Alvin Kamara get at the goal line? They want to use Taysom Hill. They used him a lot of different creative ways in the preseason. I want to see what Clint Kubiak does, but I think there's a chance that, especially given the matchup against Carolina, that Taysom Hill falls into the end zone here. I like him as tight end 15 if you need somebody as well. Again, those are some guys that, again, if you're sort of looking in the flex range, if you're a little bit desperate, slightly deeper league, I like this week.
Jay, considering how high Jaden Daniels' stock has risen in fantasy, I know a lot of it is the rushing upside. I get that, but this is an elite deep ball thrower, by the way. We saw that right away in the preseason against the Jets. It's a little surprising how underappreciated or undervalued Terry McLaurin has become, especially Jahan Dotson's traded. There's just not a lot in this wide receiver room.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he is the one guy there. He's seemingly going to be used very consistently. It kind of became memeable how Cliff Kingsbury was just putting him in the same spot in the preseason repeatedly. But, I mean, to your point, like, Jaden Daniels, the concern about him is that sometimes he can bail on plays a little bit too early and then not work in the middle of the field enough. Like with Terry McLaurin, if he's throwing deep balls to Terry McLaurin, I don't really understand why like Anthony Richardson is going so much higher in drafts than Jaden Daniels. Like, I think there's a huge chance that Jaden Daniels outperforms Anthony Richardson, and he's probably going to have to be playing from behind a bit with that defense. So Jaden McDaniels, Terry McLaurin, I think they'll both have monster seasons.
We're going to take one more break here. Well, go ahead, Matthew.
Commander's thought.
I was just gonna say to that point about, and to the point that Jay's making about how memeable it's been, just people making fun of the fact that McLaurin basically lined up in the same spot for every single snap in the preseason. Even with that, DeAndre Hopkins, who got sort of a similar treatment in Arizona under Cliff Kingsbury, was still a top 10 fantasy wide receiver under Cliff Kingsbury. Like, I just think McLaurin is a good enough route runner. He is fast enough, and Daniels is a talented enough thrower that McLaurin is going to get his. Again, he's going to get a massive target share on a team, to your point, Connor and Jay, that is going to have to throw quite a bit. I wrote this in my love-hate column that's coming out today. We talked about it a little bit yesterday as well. People are going to be shocked at how much they have to use Zach Ertz in this offense, at least early on. You'll see Sidami Brown. You'll see some Luke McCaffrey. But, it should be a big target share for Terry McLaurin, and then both Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler out of the backfield. I think you'll be surprised at how much both those guys touch the ball.
Just on the Cliff point, like, Cliff Kingsbury's not stupid. Like, he's doing it for a reason, and you might think that it might not work, it might not be the right reason, but it's not like definitely going to fail. Like, he's doing it for a purpose. And to your point, Matthew, like, it did work with DeAndre Hopkins. By the end of his time in Arizona, Kingsbury was moving Hopkins around a little bit more. I don't think McLaurin's just going to be in the same spot every single play, running the exact same route. Like, he can run different routes from the same starting spot. So, yeah, I think Terry McLaurin is pretty high floor and probably higher ceiling than most people think.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully, respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.